Take a look at these three rappers. On first glance, if you're at all familiar with them, you'll know that they're very different from each other. Different styles, flows, and subject matter. But there's one thing that they all have in common that puts them in a box for me, and it's that I think that they're the worst kinds of rappers out there. Before I go any further, I shouldn't have to say this, but this is the internet, so just in case one of the two or three people who end up watching this video feels some type of way, I'm saying right now that this entire video is just my opinion. Any statement related to the quality of music comes down to personal opinion at the end of the day, so please try to keep that in mind. Now, when I say worst kinds of rappers, I don't mean that I literally think that they're the worst rappers, because I think that there's a difference between those two terms. Rappers who I consider to be the worst simply make music that I consider to have the worst quality, while rappers who I consider to be of the worst kind have something about their musical personality, image, or attitude that makes it significantly harder for me to want to listen to their music at all, regardless of its quality. But I will admit that the quality of their music does play a part in me not wanting to listen to them. So, what is it about Cordae, Polo G, and NF that makes them the worst kinds of rappers in my opinion? Simply put, they're not as good as they say they are. I know that may sound like the dumbest thing ever because practically every rapper has called themselves the GOAT or a legend at some point, but with Cordae, Polo G, and NF, it's a bit deeper than that, so allow me to explain. Let's start with Cordae. Cordae, in my opinion, is a good rapper. He's at least decent at everything that most people would ever want from a rapper, and on top of that, he seems like a pretty cool person to be around, so I can understand why a lot of people like him. The problem that I have with Cordae that turns me off so much from his music is his ego. Like I said before, I think that Cordae is a good rapper, but at the same time, I also think that he makes very basic music. Nothing about his catalog so far is unique or noteworthy. Everything from his flows, lyricism, melodies, and even his beat selection are all at a pretty basic level. This state in itself isn't exactly bad because there's a lot of rappers like Cordae who are doing just fine. But what makes him even worse than just basic is the fact that he makes his greatness as a rapper a huge talking point in his music, which is something that I find very annoying. For most rappers these days, bragging about their prowess on the mic is just a quick throwaway bar. And even if it isn't, they're either charming enough to actually get away with it, or you can clearly tell that they haven't put much thought into it, so they're not being serious. But when you listen to Cordae's music, it's obvious that he's being very serious. He really thinks that he's that good, that he's a significant figure in modern hip-hop, which, like I said before, is something that I find very annoying because he clearly isn't. Cordae is a good but basic rapper. Nothing about him as an artist is special or particularly interesting. Ever since he blew up back in 2018, he's been rapping on the same level of a small developing artist, but acting like he's much more. Cordae can claim his greatness all he wants, but without the skill, charisma, or musical quality to back it up, he just comes off as an arrogant personality, which makes it hard for me to ever want to listen to his music. Next up, we have Polo G, whom I think has some of the same problems as Cordae. He's a good but basic rapper. He's overhyped and he overemphasizes on his greatness to a point that I find annoying since I think that he's actually not that good. While Cordae's professions of greatness are expressed through his lyrics, Polo's are expressed mostly through his image, which basically presents him as this generation's Tupac, a cut above your average gangster rapper. He's honest and open about his emotions, socially conscious and vocal about it, but still heavily in touch with his street audience. All it takes is one look at Polo G's album titles to see just how good he thinks he is. First album, Die a Legend. Second album, The GOAT. And third album, Hall of Fame. I know that I'm in the minority for this take, but this is corny to me. Not just because I think that the music on these albums aren't fitting of the titles, but also because it's just a bad look. How lacking in self-awareness do you have to be to unironically choose three of the most generic, overused terms in hip-hop as your album titles? Even some of the best rappers of all time would never do this because they know how shallow and basic it would look. Another reason why I consider Polo G as an example of one of the worst types of rappers is because of how he handles criticism. back in June 2021 on his Hall of Fame album. In response to a lot of rap fans calling his music average and repetitive, you might recall the terms polo guitar and piano G getting thrown around a lot, he responded on the song Toxic with the following lyrics. A little white boy from the burbs got the nerve to tell me I ain't going hard enough. Like he really ever had it hard enough. Like bitch, don't get me started up. I'm still gonna be right here if the rap game cleaned the garbage up. If there's one thing that annoys me beyond belief, it's when people use race as some sort of shield against criticism when they don't like what's being said, especially when it comes to subjective topics like the quality of someone's music. Of course, we don't know the majority race of the people who were criticizing Polo G at the time, but even if we did, it still wouldn't matter either way, because that has nothing to do with the topic at hand. Polo G is completely justified to feel some type of way about the comments on his music, but I think that he went too far. Instead of replying like most rappers who feel bothered enough by fan criticism to respond by simply disagreeing with them because music is subjective, he wanted to come out looking like he won something and decided to pull the race card to avoid the criticism altogether. As far as the other stuff that he said, implying that the reason why the quote-unquote white boy doesn't like his music is another tired argument that people try to use to invalidate criticism. Most of the gangster rap audience can't relate to what gangster rappers say, and yet they make some of the most popular and appreciated music these days. So being able to relate to the artist has nothing to do with it. Overall, to close off on why I think that Polo G is one of the worst types of rappers out there, I think that he overemphasizes on his greatness to the point of being corny, and I don't like how he handled the criticism of his music in the past. Those lyrics on Toxic especially rubbed me the wrong way, and they're definitely a huge factor in why I'm heavily turned off from Polo G's music to this day. Last but not least, we have NF. But before we get into him, I just want to make something very clear. Regardless of what I just said about Polo G and Cordae, I still think that they're good rappers. I understand why they're liked as much as they are, and there's at least a handful of songs from them both that I wouldn't mind revisiting sometime in the future. Unfortunately, those are things that I cannot say about NF. He's the whole reason why I even thought about making this video in the first place, and is hands down one of, if not the most repulsive rapper that I have ever listened to. NF, in my opinion, is the definition of an average rapper. He's an anomaly, the Eminem-inspired, lyrical spiritual rapper that made it big, with all of the strengths and weaknesses that you'd expect. Undeniably skilled, driven, and well-meaning, but severely lacking in self-awareness when it comes to how he comes across in his music. My biggest turnoff for rappers in general is when they say basic stuff in a very aggressive and overly confident way, and that's exactly what NF does a lot in his music. He's a shameless Eminem clone, so he tries to pull off that same aggressive delivery that Eminem is famous for, but he lacks Marshall's lyricism, and thus only succeeds in coming off sounding like just another corny, try-hard rapper. That type of delivery takes away all of the seriousness from his music and makes him sound more like an actor trying to do their best Eminem impression as a parody, instead of an actual professional artist trying to carve their own path to success. When NF raps about his depression, relationship troubles, or whatever struggles he went through in the past in a calm and collected flow, it's actually not that bad, sometimes even good. But whenever he speeds it up over another one of those repetitive, overdramatic best fight scenes compilation instrumentals, it just sounds like he's overcompensating for his basic lyricism. In conclusion, NF is, in my opinion, the worst type of rapper. His basic lyricism mixed with his often try-hard, overly confident delivery makes for some of the most hard-to-get-through listening experiences of my entire life. He wears his influence way too tightly on his sleeve, to the point of coming off as a shameless clone of a far superior rapper who can't stand on his own merit. At his best, he's good and relatable, and at his worst, he is painfully average. So average that it makes me not even want to listen to the good stuff. And that finally brings us to the end of the video. Do you agree with me, or do you disagree? What are some things that the artists do that make you not want to listen to their music at all? Feel free to share whatever thoughts you may have in the comments below, and be sure to like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more. And without further ado, this has been First Not the Exorcist. I'll see you all next time. God bless.